House hunters, we're house hunters. House hunters, we're house hunters. House hunters, we're house hunters. Hunting for a house. This week on Flying the Kupp, we are talking about our experiences getting our perfect house, that future home. That's what we wanted. That was an experience that we went through, and we both did it during a pandemic. My name is Michael Bennett. I'm your one host, and then next to me, we have the illustrious Josh Kupperstein.
Hello, everyone. It's me.
And we're happy to have you here, and if they want more of you, where can they find more of you?
More of me, more of us.
More of us.
More of us. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Flying the Kupp. We're also on YouTube and Spotify. Search Flying the Kupp on there. You can download all our episodes and listen to them on Spotify. You can watch the podcast here, plus our other video content on YouTube.com. Also, if you want to check out everything Flying the Kupp, head over to flyingthekupp.com. All our shows and information and updates are on there as well. And if you're looking at search bar, if it's that name you can't see, it's spelled Kupp. Michael Bennett.
Josh, do you love your house?
I can say that I do.
It was a journey to get to your house and buying that through the experience. But let's start in the very beginning.
Yes.
When did you start looking? When did this whole process begin?
All right. So let's see. I got engaged in November of 17. So I knew that the clock was going to be ticking in which I'd have to move out of my parents' house at some point as I was going to be getting married. And when we eventually scheduled it for a mid-2019 wedding. So I knew that was kind of the first estimate. But at the time, my wife now was in school, going back getting a nursing degree. So we knew that we weren't going to both be ready to buy a house immediately upon being married. So we decided to go the apartment route for a year, save up some money, and at least have our own place for a year before seeing where we were going. And then it turned out that from the wedding, we had some very generous family members and friends that we were able to make enough from the money, and with a couple of promotions and opportunities at work for both of us, it made sense financially to start looking. So we started looking in October of 2019. Met with a realtor. She's great. And, was not expecting to start looking. I was to seriously start looking. I thought, like anything else, you know me, I'm very meticulous. And I'm the kind of guy that puts stuff in my Amazon cart and waits a week or two before I actually buy it just to make sure I want. So I knew I needed some time to make a decision, especially with buying a house. And I wanted to have enough time to kind of go and take our time. And little did we know, we started the process, and it was off to the races from there.
I like that. You did the trial run first, and then you bought the premium version later down the road. You did that apartment, and then you got the house.
And in theory, the first weekend we met with the realtor, we went and looked at houses, and we had an offer, and a couple of days later, they actually accepted it. I thought, this is way too easy. That newsflash, it did not end up being that way, because after inspection there was issues with some of the stuff in the basement, and we got out of that luckily, and moved on with the process, and we'll explain the rest moving forward. But first I want to get to your process, because you were shortly after mine. I started right before everything had happened, but you were right in the middle of the pandemic trying to look for houses when everything was different.
Yeah, so my home buying process started early, probably 2 years before I bought my house, probably around 2018. And the reason for that was I just wanted to move out. Like, I wanted to get out, start my own life, family, get out there on my own, make it as an investment. I thought buying the house was the way to do that. I still think that at this time, but it took a while to get there. I was very methodical about it, thinking about the entire process, figuring out what I want, seeing what was on the market, going to open houses, showings, and then really just preparing myself to be financially ready. And as I'm looking and trying to really figure out what I want, I'm really honing in. Because for me, it started and I was thinking, I could live anywhere. as long as it's a roof over my head. It doesn't matter if there's cockroaches, if it has only 3 walls. As long as it stays standing, I figured I'm going to be good. I can fix it.
That was something that was a little bit different about our views on the house, was you were ready for anything. Some of the early projects, I remember at the gym we were looking at some of the houses, and you showed me a picture of a house in the woods that was barely standing on top of standing upright, and all I kept thinking is, I come to visit, I'm done for. Like I'm going to get mauled by some bear, or
I'm just going to murder you in the woods.
And I figured it was all some sort of elaborate plan. But luckily, you held off and continued down there, and eventually started looking at some houses even closer to me, which is really, that was my biggest input to you, is you can't move far. I would not. You already had moved temporarily to another place, and you were going to be going full time, and I was having withdrawal. We grew up as essentially neighbors, and now I was trying to lure you back home.
Yeah, that's definitely why it ended up being local. But
most of my friends all moved away, and I can't help but take it personal.
Well, hopefully they'll come back. But it was really looking for a house. As I got into new relationships, other necessities popped up, like running water and electricity, and
I could see you with a jug of water being perfectly fine. Like today, we're in the shop. Well, you would drink half of it.
Well, I'm basically a minimalist, and I'm that perfect guy example. You give me a TV, a lawn chair, and I'm set. That's all I need. Give me electricity, running water. Of course, got to have Wi-Fi, and that is what I needed. And then as the relationships develop, that partner starts to say, oh, how about a bedroom? How about a craft room? Wouldn't a living room and a couch be nice? And then, I wanted those. And then after I had input, I was like, I want 2 bathrooms. That was my big deal. I wanted 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs, and I wanted 2 full bathrooms in case we got to wash the dog or do anything like that. But what were your requirements for looking? So you and Tara were already married.
We were already married,
engaged,
yes.
Or whatever, you begin the process.
In this process, we were married, and we had input. Both of us had to be comfortable where we were going to live. It's a little bit different than an apartment. Very much different, because you have a lot of money on the line, and you don't have the ability to get out of a lease or go year to year and see if you like it. It's something where you have to imagine yourself living long term, and there's a lot of things to imagine: commute and size and family down the road. And we're big homebodies, so we've always grown up around family. So it was very big that we stayed within the area that we grew up. We loved our school district, and we wanted to either be in that one or another one local that was also very good. So that was a big one, was because we knew our first goal, this was going to be a starter home. We knew we weren't going to be able to do everything we wanted long term immediately, and we wanted to have something that would be an investment, but something that we had the option, if we needed to stay long term, to be able to save more for our future house, that we were okay with that. The minimum we were looking for was a minimum of 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, had to have a basement, preferably finished, a garage that could fit a car, and a backyard of some sort. Some houses that we looked at had variations of that, things missing. And as you go through the process of going through and looking at houses, your wants and needs kind of change when you see what's possible. You see something that has a great basement set up, and then you're like, oh, now I definitely need this kind of basement, or I need this one has a walk-in closet. That would be really even great for that. And this has this feature, and this has this feature. But my biggest thing was I wanted to have enough room where we could start our family there and not be overcrowded. Because some houses that we've looked at, we were looking and thinking, okay, this is going to be fine for the first one, but we start having a second kid, we're going to have to move because it's not properly set up. And I didn't want to have something where we knew that we were going to be forced to live. I wanted to have somewhere where if we stayed there for when we having multiple kids, then we had the flexibility to live there while we were looking, if it happened, and to have some space for guests.
And planning for worst case scenario too there, which is also great.
When you're putting that much money out, and I know it's even worse today, so I'm lucky that we got it when we did, but
very fortunate.
but it's something that you want to make sure that you're okay with because you can't trade it in. I mean, you can, but early on, you're going to lose a lot of money, more than likely, and it's just very pressure.
It's at minimum that 5-year investment because it's a big chunk of change, not financial advisor or anything like that. But if you are renting short term, sometimes it can make sense. It can be a cheaper option. Maybe you get a little bit more in a certain area. You might not be building equity, but if you're moving from place to place, renting could be better. But if you're buying and want to make that a financial investment, you got to at least do that for 5 years.
And it obviously comes with a down payment, which could be a lot for people, and definitely was not cheap. So it's a lot
not with your requirements.
With my requirements. So it's not cheap as an initial investment. But once you get past that, you get to a point where financially, and that's one thing for us, is you're looking at what your rent cost is, and you look at what your mortgage cost could be to own property, and every payment that you make goes towards principal. Not a lot, and it's very annoying when you see how much goes towards interest and escrow and stuff. But when you make those payments, and little by little you own more and more of the house, as opposed to sticking in apartments for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and that's all rent going towards nothing, and you own nothing. So when you realize that the mortgage is, while expensive, if in a certain realm could be just as financially reasonable to do that versus rent, then the equation starts to, when you start seeing the numbers when you're going through the process, it makes a little bit more fiscal sense.
It's also more fun to have an investment that you live in and you can take care of.
That more than likely will grow.
That should grow if you did it right. Yes. And is a little bit more stable, unlike a stock market or bonds that could be crazy, or your cryptocurrency that's swinging left and right.
Which makes the price and everything makes things a little bit more difficult when you have a very finite location. You know, we want to be near a family in that school district. Prices, are what they are in that school district. So, we knew we had a small radius and our options weren't as large as others. But you were a little bit more vague in your selection as far as we talked about. You just need a roof over your head and everything. But what was it where you were looking? Did you have a specific general area that you were looking at as far as planting your seeds and planting your roots there?
I just knew Pennsylvania was the best start for me, and then just kind of narrowing it down from what I wanted. You talk about real estate, location are the 3 most important things about real estate, and it is really true because you can't change where your house is, but you can change what's in your house.
I've seen some absolutely beautiful homes that are up against a main road or against a shopping center, and their value is nothing what you would expect it to be because of location. And houses that may be average are skyrocketed because of where they're located. So location absolutely is key.
And that's really what honed in the process for me. I was very methodical about the house buying process. I put in a couple offers here and there throughout my 2 years of searching. But in the beginning of 2020, I actually had an offer that was accepted. And in the beginning of 2020, just as the pandemic was really starting to happen, the offer was accepted. And they're like, all right, put in your guaranteed money, a couple $1,000, you just wire it. And that turnaround time was very quick. It's so quick, my real estate agent was like, well, this doesn't feel just about right just yet. Let me look into it. Get the money ready, but don't send anything just yet. Let me talk with the other real estate agent. What it turns out was the seller's real estate agent was hacked, and people were impersonating him, sending emails and offers to get my bid, my buy. They were like, yes, absolutely, send this guaranteed money in right now, and it's yours. So it was all just a big scam. So when I thought in the beginning of 2020 I had an absolutely beautiful townhome, that was an absolutely awful scam that really got into me. But throw your hands up sometimes and say you got to keep moving forward. And I just kept on with the search, and I found this beautiful home. And it's just one of those times where I thought this home was really great. had wonderful bones in a great community, and I just said, hey, let's just throw out an offer. My partner was just going, I don't think we'll get it for that type of price. That's a little bit lowballing them. I'm just like, I'm just going to throw it out there with a little bit of extra on top. And lo and behold, they accepted it. And that is really what kind of blew everything away and just changed everything. But I know you having that whirlwind of emotions, kind of going through that process. Do you have any fun house buying stories? I know you alluded to one in the beginning there.
Yeah, so there is definitely a whirlwind of emotions because you're buying a house. This is somewhere where you're going to live, where you, chances are, hopefully where your kids will maybe take their first steps. There's a lot involved in buying your first house. So there's a lot of pressure on it, getting it right. And the process, as I alluded to earlier, I thought started out pretty easy, saying, oh, this is great. First bid, first offer, one quick counter, and it worked out perfectly.
Easy. People are saying it's a hard market.
And I thought we played this great. We have this beautiful 4-bedroom house, a 2,500 square feet, all this stuff. And in the the school district we grew up in and close to family and all that, and it turned out there was too much damage to really make the investment worse. We got out of that. And then we went through 5 more offers before we finally agreed on this house that we're in now. And that's deflating, incredibly deflating, because you put an offer in, you put it all out there, and you're thinking, this is the place I'm going to live, and something happens to derail that, and you get back to square one, and it's not, this is somewhere that that you're willing to actually go all in on. And we've lost offers due to people paying cash. We've lost offers to people that bid against us for the same amount but declined the need for an inspection, which is insane. We had a house sell, and this is the beginning. This is when it was really still, people thought the bad housing market was bad just for going the asking price. In a quick matter, it's 1,000 times worse today. We had a house sell while we were standing in it. Because a person was like, oh, they didn't put an offer in, we'll accept this other one. We're like, we were drafting an offer while standing in their house. And it sold. That was incredibly quick. And then with the last house, I was kind of deflated from the whole process. It's fun to go in and say, hey, let's look at this house. Let's go look at, and we looked at 20, 30 houses, and it's a blast to go in and envision and see how they have things decorated and see what houses you like. And it's fun when a new house pops up and you're going to go look at it. The last house, I was, I was thrilled with everything about it, and wasn't too thrilled with the opening price. And I just thought, hey, I'm so deflated from everything. This is what I'm willing to pay based on the comps around it. I'll throw it out, and that was one where I threw it out, wing and a prayer. Didn't even bat my mind. And when they agreed to everything, it was a sign, I guess. And we've been there about 15 months now, and I love it. It's everything we could want. And there's always going to be there's always bits and pieces from every house that we looked at that we wish this house had a even better basement, and this one even had a better kitchen setup, and this one had a better this and this. But all in all, I couldn't be happier with where we're at now. And it's something that, with a cul-de-sac in the backyard and friendly neighbors who I've not met yet. Maybe one day.
When it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And you really get that house. And when you buy that house and you're like, wow, this is going to be mine, that's when you realize that's when it just begins. You spent all this money. You paid this huge down payment. You took on all this loan. You're taking on any projects. You got some age of the house, or it's a new house. It doesn't matter. You got unknown factors. And then that's when it really starts. And it starts with moving in.
When you sign those papers and get those keys, you cry. It get very emotional. You cry when you see the price. You get past that. And then when you get those keys and you open the door and say, we own this. I had many times, within the first couple of days at night, standing there in awe and saying, it's very basic, but I was standing and say, I own this wall. I own that. I own that. That's my bathroom. That's this. And it's something incredibly gratifying about that. And to know and to look into some of the rooms and say, one day I'm going to be standing in this doorway and hopefully my kid will be sleeping in that room. Like, that is incredibly uplifting, and got me sitting there and just in awe and just staring and just in a quiet house, and was very, very interesting and uplifting for sure. But moving in, that's the part that really sucks, especially for both of us moving in the pandemic.
I tried to make it a little bit easier for you when you moved in and walked through those front doors. You remember what happened when you pulled up your house on the first day?
How could I forget? We moved in and we got done the settlement. We go to our house for the first time since owning it, and on the front of the house is a beautiful laminated picture of a drawing of our brand new home, our first ever home, that was given and presented to us by Michael and his partner, and it had a very beautiful note on the back wishing us well, and it still hangs on our fridge today, and it's something that meant a lot to us, but it still means a lot to me, and I love having something from you guys on our house, and it was the first thing we put up on our fridge as soon as we moved in.
I'm glad you appreciate it, because the first time you saw it, you're like, oh, wow, these homeowners previously did something nice for us.
I thought it was a nice thing to say, this was our house, and then I was like, oh, it's Michael. Even better.
We wanted to make something that stamped this momentous occasion for you. Buying your first house is extremely special, and we wanted to make sure that is starting it off right on a good foot. But in the pandemic, things are a little bit harder. I couldn't hand that to you in person, and I couldn't help you move in, carry any boxes. That was all you. What were some challenges that you ran into moving in?
Yeah, and so we moved in the middle of the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, where people had no clue what was going on. No one expected it to go on as long as it did, but it was still in that very first part where everyone was on lockdown. The moving company was still willing to do it because we had some furniture that we had from our apartment that I knew, especially if everyone else was locked down, I was never going to be able to do myself. And doing in the middle of the work week, I wanted to get that major furniture from a moving company, then we would take everything else. Luckily, they were still willing to do it, but we couldn't have any other family members help other than my dad was gracious enough for him to let me load up his car to bring some stuff to his house and my parents' house. And it worked out that my parents' house was exactly halfway from our apartment to our new home. And because our settlement date and our lease expiration date on our apartment were the exact same day, we had to be out of the apartment, have everything cleaned and turned in, and start moving everything into the house on one day. So we moved everything to and from my parents' house to get everything staged there, cleaned the apartment, and then the next day on moving day, we had the big furniture come in the last and clean. And it really made it easy because I was able to stage things and do it over the next day or two, getting every box into our new house. But I essentially had to do it myself because not only it was Tara and I that did the move, but then she, as a nurse working night shift, worked the next 3 days. So she was sleeping while I was trying to get everything in and out and set up, and it was a lot. And I will say, we'll talk another time, but it was an empty house that we had to fill up, and a lot of boxes everywhere, and it took some time. So
it's the beginning of the process. When you started off in the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was like, "Uh-oh," everything basically stopped. The fact that you got a moving company to even move your stuff is impressive.
I was very, very gracious for that. But I will say, nobody ever envisions buying your first house, getting the keys, moving everything in, and not having your family there to see it. I mean, my family and Tara's family didn't get to see our house from the inside. They were there with us for when we were walking through the house before buying, but they did not see the house as our house until about 2.5 months later. They would maybe come to the garage door, poke their head in and say hi, and that was it. Everything else was done over video call until it was safer to start visiting people, and that was really hard because I never would have imagined them not seeing it and having to do my birthday celebration on a cake out on my deck 6 feet apart with masks. That wasn't really how I envisioned people coming to my house for the first time. So
makes moving in parties a little bit difficult.
But yours was still during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was later. So I moved in August, and
about 6 months out or 5 months.
Yeah,
after.
as we're trying to figure out, what the pandemic, what COVID-19 really was, how severe and everything, and by that time. More things were working and more functional.
People had an idea of how to work with it while still being safe.
But for me, I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to not be moving from an apartment where I had to get out. So for me, it was little by little, and I'm nearly a minimalist. So in my entire life, I basically lived in a 10 by 8 room, from 0 to 29 at that point. And I'm really that was all my stuff. And then you take that and then you spread it over an entire house. Moving's easy. I strapped my bed, I just folded it up like a taco and shoved it in a van and drove it a bunch of miles till I got to my house, threw it on the ground, and that's where I slept. Moving's easy for me. And I didn't have any furniture. I had nothing when I was first moving into my house except for my computer, my TV, and my bed. I had the necessities to live in that house. But moving became difficult when I moved in with my partner because that's where all the stuff came from. I'm more of a minimalist, whatever.
It's also where you lose your control over what happens. Yeah. Which is great. Trust me, I'm not the best decorator myself.
Well, keep listening to Flying the Kupp for our listeners out there for what we do to our houses, improvements we make, because that is coming soon. But really, the home buying process, though being difficult, I absolutely love it. I love being a homeowner. I love this investment. And the two most important things that I love is I love this location because I'm 5 minutes from everything, shopping malls, eating, all different types of food, friends, family. Location is the best, so I nailed that. And then I also have the best neighbors. When I first moved into this house, my neighbor next door mowed all my lawn because I didn't have a lawnmower. I came from living in a small room. I didn't worry about outside. My neighbor mowed the lawn. My neighbor across the street, very kind, started giving us things. I didn't have any lamps. There's no light in my house. I was going by natural light. They were like, here's a lamp. I'm like, actually, I need that. Thank you for the lamp. And it is just continually proving to be an amazing location, and I absolutely love my house. I'm never going to get rid of it. I'm going to keep owning it, and I'll rent it out when I upgrade. But this is my house. This is my first home.
You mentioned the word upgrade or future. What's your future plans as far as this house, a potential next house on the road? Do you have where do you see yourself?
Well, in the future, I'm getting my real estate license.
Congratulations.
Well, I got to pass all the classes and the test first.
Make sure to check out michaelbennettrealestate.com.
I already own it. It's going to be upgraded a little bit soon, but I want to be your Pennsylvania real estate agent for any friends or family out there. That is the future for me.
I will say, knowing this man over 25 years now, close to that, 20, 25 years, he is one of the most trustworthy, intelligent people that I know. So please, you'll be in great hands with this. No one will work harder for you. So please, michaelbennettrealestate.com. Think about it. Tell your friends, tell everybody, and just stay tuned because he's going to do big things and will be great for you and your family. So
yeah, maybe I'll sell you your dream house. What's part of that dream house?
That is, you are already hired. As I mentioned earlier, our house, based on timing and everything, was a starter home, something that we knew we would eventually move out of into a larger home. I would love a house that has plenty of land for just some privacy and for our kids to go and play on. I love, again, I still want to stay within our area. I love it. My dream scenario, if all the stars align and everything happened and everything continues down the path it is, I would love to buy land and have a house built from scratch, brand new, the way we want to design it. And I'm not as much of, I don't really care about specific fancy things as far as the $200,000 car or all this, but something I've always dreamed about is just having a big house. And I don't, not to sound over the top, it's just something, the house is where you're going to be spending most of your time and something that you want to, and I love to entertain, so I want plenty of space to entertain and plenty of space and comfort to make different areas into something special in the house and make just, it's just something that I would love.
You need room for activities. Yeah, I hear you.
I need a bigger gym in the area of the basement. I have one now, and I'd just like to expand on that even further.
You need a lot of things, but the house and where we started is the beginning of that. We laid the foundation for our families and our lives by buying our homes, and even started a few projects along the way. And if you want to hear more about those projects, if you want to follow us on our journey, where do they find us, Josh?
They can find us over at YouTube at Flying the Kupp. We're also on Spotify, Flying the Kupp. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Flying the Kupp, and flyingthekupp.com for all news, notes, updates, and videos. And if that's in that search bar, if it's that name you can't see, it's spelled Kupp. And also, michaelbennettrealestate.com. Be on the lookout for that. If you want to find out me and all my fitness and health videos as well, you can look over at redcon1_Kupp. That's redcon1_KUPP on Instagram and Facebook. We'll post a lot of fun recipes and videos and Redcon1 sales and everything on there. So that's my own personal channel. But to find us again, it's at Flying the Kupp on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube and Spotify.
So we moved out of our apartments. We moved it out of those rooms.
We flew the coop.
We are flying the coop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was a little early on that one.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little premature.
I love to fly.
Well, you do. We'll keep going. We'll soar.
Your house is beautiful. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yours is too.
Thank you. I'm going to sell.